What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sports Talk with Ryan Stoudt, your Friday edition of Sports Talk with Ryan Stoudt. This will be streamed every Wednesday after today. I was a little bit busy this Wednesday, so I decided to do it this Friday. Before we jump into our topics for today, I do want to give some shout-outs for a second. I want to urge you guys to check out Fuel to the Fire, hosted by Landon Hammonds. I'm on that show. John Mark's on that show. We're all part of the crew there. I also want to urge you guys to watch Crunch Time Sports Show hosted by John Mark Stivers. Both of those shows are twice a week. They're really, really good guys. They run great shows. So I do want to urge you guys to watch that show. Also, again, I did say every Wednesday now I will be doing these live streams. And as summer approaches, I'll probably do 2 live streams a week. But for right now, I'm only doing 1. And let's jump right into our topics here today because we got a lot to talk about. Starting off with breaking news out of the NFL. Just this morning, I had to update my slides this morning. J.J. Watt has requested out of Houston, and they agreed to let him go. So J.J. Watt is no longer a part of the Houston Texans. I think we could see him going somewhere else by the end of this weekend because I think he's going to go to Pittsburgh. I don't think there's any other team that I can see him going to. Playing with both of his brothers, that's a situation I can see him wanting to be in. Now, J.J. Watt's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, so any team would be lucky to have him. I think teams are going to be chomping at the bit to get J.J. Watt, and I think we'll see him end up somewhere by the end of the weekend. And this is just another reason for Deshaun Watson to want out of Houston. I mean, you trade one of your best players, that's all indicators is that, that's going to make Deshaun Watson want to leave Houston even more. And this Houston Texans team is in disarray right now. I mean, I don't know that there's anybody on that team that wants to play for them, even if they would get a trade. I really don't know that there would be anybody that would want to play for the Houston Texans. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I know why J.J. Watt wanted to leave. They're saying that they don't want to trade Deshaun Watson, but that's fine because he'll sit. I guarantee you Deshaun Watson will sit. This team is just in disarray, period. I mean, Deshaun Watson's going to leave. He'll be gone by next week, I think. He really will. I think he'll be gone by Deshaun Watson will be traded by next week. They'll finalize a trade deal because Deshaun Watson's going to want out of Houston even more. And if they don't, Deshaun Watson's just going to sit. Plain and simple. Deshaun Watson's going to sit. So I can see a Deshaun Watson deal getting done by the end of next week. And, I don't know where he's going to go, but with this J.J. Watt thing, that gives him another reason to want to leave. And I think he's going to Pittsburgh. I don't think there's any other team that he wants to go to other than Pittsburgh. I can see Pittsburgh signing him by the end of the weekend. In the next couple of days, I can see J.J. Watt signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the chat, Landon, what's up to you? Thank you so much for watching the live stream. Again, guys, Landon's in the chat right now, but I do want to urge you guys to watch his show, Fuel to the Fire. I'll be on that tonight. It should be up tomorrow morning, the video, I believe. But check it out. We do the shows twice a week. It's going to be really fun. But yeah, J.J. Watt is, the Houston Texans are in disarray, and that's all, I have to say on that. But that was breaking news out of the league this morning. Next up, we have Super Bowl 55, which I did not talk about, but TB12 does it again. 7 Super Bowl rings for Tom Brady. 31-9 was the final score. The Buccaneers did not allow the Chiefs to score 1 touchdown in this game. If you watched my pre-show, Landon, John, Mark, and I, all 3 of us were way wrong on our predictions. We thought it was at least going to be close, and it really wasn't. So, I think a lot of that you can attribute to the offensive line in Kansas City. I said it before the game. The offensive line was going to be huge. That was going to be the make or break situation in Kansas City, and it was. Patrick Mahomes didn't have 2 seconds in the pocket to throw the ball. He was still getting the ball off, and he was hitting the receivers on the helmet. Like, he couldn't have thrown the ball any better, I don't think. But nonetheless, Tom Brady threw 3 touchdowns. The Buccaneers, this was a blowout. And, Tom Brady further cements his legacy as the GOAT. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. 7 Super Bowl rings, 10 Super Bowl appearances, now his 5th Super Bowl MVP. The list goes on and on. I can see Patrick Mahomes catching up to him. This was a big loss for the Chiefs, though, because like we said, Patrick Mahomes had a chance to go back-to-back before he was 25, and that could have been, amazing. But unfortunately, he did not. And I think you can attribute that to the offensive line in Kansas City. That was a really, really, really big part of this game. And Tampa Bay gets its second Super Bowl. Their first one coming with John Gruden. You also see there Bruce Arians holding the Super Bowl trophy. But I think the Chiefs are going to be back. I think the Chiefs are going to be a force to be reckoned with, because I think if the Chiefs had those 2 offensive tackles, this would have been a completely different story. Because they have those 2 tackles that were out were 2 all-pro tackles. So imagine if they're in, Patrick Mahomes is going to have a lot more time to throw that ball. And I think the Chiefs could have won this game if those tackles were in. Not only that, but the penalties too. The Chiefs had so many first-half penalties. They basically shot themselves in the foot. So many first-half penalties. And that contributed to it as well. Some of them, a lot of people think were ticky-tack, and I can see where some of them were ticky-tack. Sometimes you got to let these guys play in the Super Bowl. But if they wouldn't have had as many first-half penalties, and if the offensive line would have played well, I think we're seeing a completely different outcome to this game. But nonetheless, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They get their 2nd Super Bowl title ever. Tom Brady gets his 7th Super Bowl ring. Gronk gets his 4th. And they had their parade yesterday. So, congratulations to them. Moving on to some more NFL offseason topics. Our next topic, Dak could be done in Dallas. He's a free agent this season. We don't know where he's going to go. He is asking for a 5-year, $175 million deal, and he's likely to end up a free agent because Dallas won't be able to pay him that much money. And if I'm Dallas, I am trying so hard to negotiate with Dak Prescott and work a deal out, because this is a guy that you want on your team. On the right team, you put the right guys around Dak Prescott, and that could be a Super Bowl team. I think if the Dallas Cowboys can keep everybody there, which is highly unlikely, but if they can keep Dak Prescott and keep a decent team around him, they might be a Super Bowl contender. I think Dak Prescott under the right team is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. And call that a hot take if you want to, because a lot of people think Dak Prescott's just average. I think Dak Prescott is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the entire league. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. People do not give this guy enough credit. And again, if he is on the right team, if you get some guys around him, he could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback in the future, depending on where he goes. I think he probably will be a free agent, because I don't think Dallas is going to pay him that much money, and I don't think they're going to negotiate. I think that's what they should do. I don't think it's going to happen. If he were to go somewhere, there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback right now. My Minnesota Vikings need a quarterback. San Francisco needs a quarterback. Chicago needs a quarterback. The Patriots need a quarterback. The Dolphins need a quarterback. The Texans need a quarterback. The list goes on and on. There's a lot of teams in the league right now that need a quarterback. And we'll see what happens with Dak. But I think 157 or 175 million is a lot to ask for especially coming off of an injury like that. But I think it's worth mentioning that Dak Prescott is a very, very underrated player in this league. He is at least, you can at least call him a good quarterback. And he is one of those quarterbacks with the right team around him, they could go to the Super Bowl. But that's the latest on Dak Prescott in Dallas. Moving on to Russell Wilson. It was reported this week that he was frustrated being in Seattle, especially with their offensive line, their lack of an offensive line. And he was very upset with the fact that he was not never really had a good offensive line. He was sacked a lot in Seattle, and he might be requesting a trade very, very soon. I don't think they will trade him. He's way too valuable. unless he pulls a Deshaun Watson and decides to sort of try and make it bad for them, try and get them to, or he's going to try and sit or something like that, excuse me. But I don't think Seattle will trade him unless he starts, acting like Deshaun Watson's acting in Houston. I think he's way too valuable. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. He just won Man of the Year. I had them pegged to go to the Super Bowl before the season started. And needless to say, Russell Wilson is a type of player that can turn an entire organization around. I think he could end up somewhere like Miami if they do trade him. Either that or he could end up somewhere. Well, either that or he's going to stay in Seattle. Those are the only two scenarios I can see with him right now. Is that he's either going to stay in Seattle or he's going to go somewhere like Miami. Because he's going to want to go to a team that has a decent offensive line. And that's going to be the main focus. If they trade him, he is going to want to go to a team with a decent offensive line. Because if he's frustrated that the Seahawks don't have an offensive line and never really had a good offensive line, then obviously, he's going to want to go to a place with a good offensive line. That's going to be the main thing that you want to look at when you look at a team that could potentially get Russell Wilson. But again, he's not going to get traded, in my opinion. The Seahawks would be absolutely stupid to trade a guy like Russell Wilson unless he pulls a Deshaun Watson and starts acting like he is right now. But I don't think Seahawks fans have anything to worry about for the time being. It's probably just some off-season frustration. A lot of people go through it, and he'll be back next year, and they'll be a Super Bowl contender like they always are. He is aging though, so as that team ages, that might be the Cardinals' division in the future. But that's all I have for Russell Wilson. Moving on, and I am so excited to bring these topics to you now because pitchers and catchers report is right around the corner. I am very, very, very excited for baseball. I've been waiting for baseball ever since October when my Dodgers won the World Series, and I love the baseball season. It's one of my favorite sports to watch. And we got some off-season moves to talk about finally with pitchers and catchers report. Spring training right around the corner. And our first big move that we saw this offseason, I believe it was last week or the week prior, Nolan Arenado got traded to the Cardinals for $51 million. And I believe they got a left-handed pitcher, the Rockies did, out of this trade. Nolan Arenado, just to throw some stats at you, in 2020 he had a 253 average, 8 home runs, 26 RBIs on 182 at-bats. So needless to say, Nolan Arenado is one of the best third basemen in the game. He's one of the best players in the game. He's a veteran player. He's going to help the Cardinals out a lot. I can see the Cardinals trying to push for a wild card spot this year because they've been improving over the years since that last World Series win. And the Cardinals might be a team to look out for in the coming years. With a guy like Nolan Arenado, who's not very young, but he's not near retirement yet. He's sort of in that middle ground, in his 30s, I believe. But yeah, Nolan Arenado is going to help the Cardinals out a lot, and they could be a very, very good wild card team. And, needless to say, they have a guy like Paul Goldschmidt on that team now. They have a decent pitching staff. Dexter Fowler in center field. The Cardinals could be dangerous. They could be very, very dangerous. They could be a team that nobody expects to be good. They could be a team that sort of flies low on the radar, if you will. And I cannot wait to see what the Cardinals do this year. They're going to be a fun team to watch this upcoming baseball season. And that's all I got to say on that is that watch out for the Cardinals this coming season. Trevor Bauer to my Los Angeles Dodgers. He signed with them 3 years, $102 million. In 2020, he was the NL Cy Young. He had a 1.73 ERA. I was not expecting this. The baseball world was not expecting this. They were not expecting the Dodgers to be a team that Trevor Bauer would want to sign to. I heard that the Phillies were the number one option for Trevor Bauer like a month ago. But here we are. Trevor Bauer's in Dodger blue this upcoming season, as if the Dodgers need another weapon on that team, because I want to tell you who their 5 pitchers are that are going to start this year, because that was released. We have Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Trevor Bauer, David Price, and Dustin May. 4 out of those 5 pitchers could be all-stars this year. 4 out of those 5 pitchers. Dustin May is still developing a little bit. But when you have 4 out of your 5 pitchers in your pitching rotation that are all-star caliber, that's insane. Not to mention you got guys like Justin Turner on that team, Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager, Will Smith, the catcher, had a decent year last year. AJ Pollock even on that team. There are Mookie Betts in right field. I could go on and on and on about all the weapons that the Dodgers have, and they are in prime position to win yet another World Series, back-to-back World Series. You want to talk about a dynasty in sports? I said this on my pre-show with Landon and John Mark the other week, on Sunday, actually. I told them, I said, I don't know, because I was asking about the Chiefs being the best team in the league. I said the only team that can compete with the Chiefs for the best team in the league is this Los Angeles Dodgers team, and they just added another weapon to that already World Series team. And, again, nobody was expecting this. I certainly wasn't expecting this for Trevor Bauer to go to the Dodgers, but here he is. He's in Dodger blue. Yesterday he had a press conference where he said he's ready to work at another World Series, and I don't know any teams that are going to stop this Dodgers team. Looking at all the people they have on that team, and they have money. They have some money. Obviously, they have some cap room because, Magic Johnson, who is their their owner, Magic Johnson owns the Dodgers. That's a guy that wants to win. That is a guy that wants to win. And here we are looking at Trevor Bauer in Dodger blue from the Cincinnati Reds. And I think he quite possibly could have stayed with the Cincinnati Reds. I think if he would have stayed with the Cincinnati Reds, I think the Reds would have been one of those surprise wild card teams because the Reds were on the upswing with Trevor Bauer. I mean, he won the Cy Young with that team last year. But obviously Trevor Bauer wanted a change of scenery, and he is now in L.A. John Mark Stivers in the chat, he says the Dodgers are going to three-peat eventually. Man, I hope so. As a Dodger fan, I really hope so. And John Mark, I can see that happening. I think they are the next dynasty of baseball. They are the next New York Yankees of baseball because they have so much money and they're just spending it and getting guy after guy after guy. There's so many weapons on this Dodgers squad. It is unreal. They just keep adding to their roster, and it is absolutely amazing. And I can definitely see him three-peating. I can see him winning 4 or 5 in a row. I don't know who's going to stop these guys. There's got to be a team out there that is going to have to make a very, very big move. Oh, okay, there we go. There's going to have to make a very, very big move or a number of moves. I thought maybe the only team that can compete with the Dodgers right now is the San Diego Padres in the NL. But I don't think there's any other team in the NL that can compete with the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are going to the World Series again. As far as the AL goes, the Rays are on the upswing. There's a couple teams maybe that could compete with the Dodgers, but the only team in the entire league I see as a threat to the Dodgers would probably be the San Diego Padres right now because they just picked up Blake Snell in the offseason as well from the Tampa Bay Rays. But that's what I have on the MLB offseason. Now we're going to move to the season that is currently in progress, and that is the NBA. Sunday, we heard that Derrick Rose is headed back to New York. Big trade. Derrick Rose to the Knicks for Dennis Smith Jr. and a pick. So Dennis Smith Jr. is headed off to the Pistons. And I think the Knicks definitely won this trade. I mean, let's look at this backcourt, right? Now you got Derrick Rose and RJ Barrett in the backcourt. That's a deadly backcourt. That could be seen as one of the best backcourts in the league, an underrated backcourt, that's for sure. And I think the Knicks are now going to be competing for that 8th spot in the East. I think the Knicks are a playoff team. But I think if they're going to be a playoff team, they're either going to be the 7 or 8 seed. But I can definitely see that happening. The Knicks are finally making some moves after a long time of Knicks fans waiting for them to make moves. They had moves that they were capable of making. They were right there in front of them. And they are finally seeming like they're making good moves and getting some good players. Derrick Rose has taken a step back from his MVP days, but he is still a good player. He's going to start on that team, I believe, And RJ Barrett and Derrick Rose in the backcourt. I believe they lost their first game back, but they are going to be a good team. The Knicks are going to be a team that I can see rolling into that 7 or 8 spot in the future. And Dennis Smith Jr. and a pick to the Pistons, that might be good. That might be good for the future. We'll have to see how the Pistons develop. Dennis Smith Jr. is not too bad. But the Pistons still need to pick up some guys. I don't think they're a playoff team quite yet, but I think the Knicks are a 7 or 8 spot in the playoffs this year. They're definitely starting to improve a lot. They're not a championship team yet, but this backcourt, I'm liking this backcourt in New York of RJ Barrett and Derrick Rose. Moving on, we're going through these topics quick. Wow. The NBA MVP race, because this is just amazing to me. Now, per NBA.com, I'm going to give you the top 5 before I talk about who's not in the MVP race. Number 1 is LeBron, and he's averaging 25, 7, and 7. Number 2 is Joel Embiid, who's averaging 29 points, 11 rebounds. Number 3 is Nikola Jokic, who is averaging 26, 11, and 8. Number 4 is KD, who's averaging 29, 7, and 9. And number 5 is Kawhi, who's averaging 26, 5, and 5. You guys want to know where Luka Doncic is sitting in this race? He's sitting at 9th. 9th. How can you possibly put Luka Doncic at the 9th spot in an MVP race? Luka Doncic is averaging 27, 8, and 9. The guy's a walking triple-double. The guy is a triple-double. He's almost averaging a triple-double. We've never seen anything like Luka Doncic in a long time. And you're going to put him at 9th in the MVP race? Luka Doncic should be ahead of Kawhi, at least. He should be ahead of Jokic. He should be ahead of Embiid. KD and LeBron I can see. But he should be 3rd, at least 3rd on that list. He's better than Kawhi right now in the MVP race. He's better than Jokic in the MVP race. He's better than Embiid in the MVP race. You could make an argument for Nikola Jokic because I think Nikola Jokic is definitely one of the best centers in the league. I don't know about the best center. I'd have to think about that. But how can you possibly put Luka Doncic at 9th in that race? That is just preposterous to me. There's no way that you can put Luka Doncic at 9th. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. John Mark in the chat says Luka over Kawhi, and I completely agree. In that MVP race, John Mark, not only should Luka be over Kawhi in that MVP race, he should be over Jokic. He should be over Embiid. He should maybe even be over Kevin Durant. But Kevin Durant and LeBron are the only ones that I can see beating out Luka Doncic for the MVP. But I think Luka Doncic should be number 1 on that list because you don't see any other player in the league averaging close to a triple-double. Luka Doncic goes out there every night and gets the job done. The only reason I can see sitting at 9th is because his team isn't doing well. But remember, remember when we saw James Harden win the MVP on a Rockets team that wasn't that great? Remember, we've seen that numerous times. And I think Luka deserves way better than what he's being averaged at right now. We got another comment from John Mark. He says he agrees that Luka should be top 2 or 3. 100%. 100%. It is just crazy that Luka is not even top 3. I mean, the NBA really screwed up here. There's nothing else to say other than that the NBA completely screwed up on this MVP list for this week. So, moving on, we have 2 more topics left, so this show is only going to be about a half an hour. Moving on. I don't really ever talk about sort of political things like this, but it is a big deal in the NBA right now. The Dallas Mavericks, it was reported this week, had stopped playing the national anthem before their home games. Now, this had been going on for 12 or 13 games, and on the 13th game is when the NBA decided to say, no, you have to play the national anthem before a home game. Now, there's a couple thoughts I have about this, and you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. This is what I think about this. I don't agree with the Dallas Mavericks choosing to not play the national anthem at the beginning of a game. That's tradition. When you do that, you're honoring the troops that gave their lives for this country. You're honoring the country itself. And overall, I think it's very disrespectful to not play the national anthem before a home game. I also think that the league screwed up very much in not telling them that they need to play the national anthem until the 12th or 13th time that they did it. That they didn't play the national anthem. So where were they the other games? Because this became a big story when, I forget who reported it, but once it becomes a big story, that's when the NBA tells them that they have to stop. That doesn't make any sense. The NBA allowed them to do this for 12 or 13 games, knowing that they were doing this. And now you tell them to stop. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not agree. I do not agree with them choosing not to play the national anthem before a home game. And I think that Mark Cuban really made the wrong decision here. But how can the NBA wait for 12 or 13 games to tell them that they shouldn't play that they have to play the national anthem? They said it's their policy, right? Okay, well, if it's your policy, you should have done it after the first game that they chose not to play the national anthem. Maybe even the second game. I would give them leeway with the first game. But am I the only one that sees this, right? If it's policy, why are you waiting 12 or 13 games to tell the Mavericks that they have to play the national anthem before the game starts? And again, I don't agree with the decision that Mark Cuban made. I wholeheartedly disagree with the decision that Mark Cuban made. But I want to know what happened with the league, because if it's policy, you got to stop it right away, whether it be a big story that gets leaked to the press or not. If it's policy, it's policy. You have to enforce your policy. You can't stop for 12 or 13 games and not enforce it anymore. You have to enforce your policy. Policy is policy. So not only is Mark Cuban at fault here, I think the NBA is at fault here, completely, because they should have enforced it earlier if it was their policy. But I just wanted to give you my thoughts there on that big story in the NBA. Moving on to our final topic of the show, and that is the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz are number one in the West right now. They are 20-5. Mitchell is averaging 24, 4 and 5, and Gobert is averaging 13 points a game and 13 rebounds. Call this a hot take if you want to. Oh, John Mark has a comment here before I move on. He says that the NBA is self-centered with interfering the issues only when they get big and blown up. And that's what I'm saying, John Mark. If it's policy, why do you not enforce it earlier? That is the number one thing that I am preaching here. That is, if you are a professional sports league and that is your policy, you need to enforce it before, or like when it happens right away. You can't wait till it's a big story. That just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, the Utah Jazz are number one in the West right now, and I'm ready to say it. Call it a hot take if you want. The Jazz are the best team in the league right now. I have the Jazz going to the NBA Finals. I have the Jazz and the Nets playing in the NBA Finals right now. But the Nets, their defense is struggling. I can see the Jazz and the Celtics playing in the NBA Finals right now. I can see the Jazz and the Sixers playing in the NBA Finals right now. I think the Western Conference Finals, if I had to choose right now, would be the Jazz and the Lakers, and I'd take the Jazz in 6. I might even take the Jazz in 5, the way they're playing, but probably not. I would take the Jazz in 6. They're the best team in the league. There's no question that they're the best team in the league. Period. Point blank. They are the best team in the league. The other week, Landon was talking about who's going to guard Anthony Davis in that series. Put Rudy Gobert on him because Rudy Gobert can guard anybody. Talk about a perimeter game. Make Anthony Davis shoot. That's fine. I'll let Anthony Davis shoot from the perimeter because he's not going to make as many shots as he would on the inside. Throw Donovan Mitchell on, or who's going to guard Donovan Mitchell? That's a question because it's certainly not Alex Caruso. And Landon and I had this debate the other week too on Field of the Fire. It's definitely not Alex Caruso. The only person that I can see the Jazz struggling with would be LeBron James. But I would still take the Jazz in 6 the way they're playing right now. I would maybe even put Derek Favors on LeBron James. Now LeBron James would win that 10 times out of 10, but at least he'd have a little, a body on him. LeBron James wouldn't make every shot over Derek Favors. He wouldn't shoot 100% from field goal range over Derek Favors. I think the Jazz are in prime position to go to the NBA Finals this year. And call that a hot take if you want, but look at the way they're playing right now. 20-5, they're the best team in the league. And I can see the Jazz going to the NBA Finals this year. And that's what I have for you guys today. I know it was a sort of a short show, a half an hour show. We went through the topics pretty quick, but those are the big topics in sports right now. I'm glad to be back. Glad to bring these shows to you. But again, catch Sports Talk with Ryan Stoudt every single Wednesday. Until the summer, I'll probably do 2 shows a week in the summer. But every Wednesday, right here on YouTube, you can catch Sports Talk with Ryan Stoudt and get your latest in the NFL, the NBA, and the MLB. MLB is rolling just around the corner, so once summer starts, we're probably going to be doing NBA and MLB shows, and we'll incorporate some NFL offseason stuff as well. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more live streams just like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. It really helps me out a lot. It really helps the channel out a lot if we gain subscribers and gain likes. And this has been your edition of Sports Talk with Ryan Stoudt live on YouTube.